I used to think my Grandma Aurora was an open book, its pages filled with simple joys and quiet sorrows. A life lived honestly, plainly under the vast Montana sky. I pictured her life the way I saw her hands. Strong, capable, etched with the map of a life spent kneading dough, tending gardens, and wiping away tears. Those hands always warm, always ready to offer a comforting squeeze or a gentle pat. I saw her life in the soft lines around her blue eyes, the color of a summer sky just after dawn, eyes that held a knowing, a quiet wisdom that always made me feel safe, like the world couldn't touch me when I was nestled in her arms. I remember the scent of her lavender and wood smoke, a comforting blend that permeated everything she touched, from her hand-knitted sweaters to the worn quilts she'd stitched together with scraps of fabric and endless patience. When I was little and nightmares would claw at the edges of my sleep, I'd creep into her room, and the simple act of breathing in that scent would soothe me, chase away the monsters lurking in the shadows. She never judged, never questioned. She'd simply pull me close, hum a lullaby in a voice raspy with age and love, and hold me until the fear subsided. She was my haven, my constant. When my own mother, caught in the whirlwind of her own life, sometimes forgot my birthday, Grandma Aurora never did. There was always a small, carefully wrapped gift, a hand-painted trinket box, a knitted scarf in my favorite color, a jar of her homemade jam. It wasn't the gift itself, but the unwavering knowledge that she remembered, that I mattered, that made those small gestures so precious. So to believe her life was straightforward, easy to comprehend wasn't a stretch. It was simply the story I had always told myself. Then she was gone. The silence that followed her passing was deafening. The house felt empty, stripped of its warmth. The scent of lavender and wood smoke faded, leaving behind a hollowness that echoed in every room. We sorted through her belongings, each item a painful reminder of her absence. My mother, my aunts, and I moved through the house like ghosts, touching objects, whispering memories, trying to piece together the fragments of a life that suddenly felt incomplete. It was in the attic, dust motes dancing in the shafts of sunlight that pierced through the grimy windows, that I found it. A small wooden box tucked away in the farthest corner, beneath a pile of faded quilts. It was unassuming, plain, the wood scratched and worn with age. I almost dismissed it, thinking it held nothing more than old sewing supplies or forgotten trinkets. But something compelled me to pick it up. It felt heavy in my hands, solid, as if it held a secret weight. The latch was stiff, rusted with time, and I had to pry it open with trembling fingers. Inside, nestled amongst dried flowers and yellowed ribbons, was a diary. Not the kind of diary I imagined. Not a frivolous collection of teenage crushes and daily observations. This was something else entirely. The cover was made of dark, worn leather, its surface cracked and creased with age. The pages were filled with handwriting and faded ink, elegant and looping, a stark contrast to the practical, straightforward woman I knew. A faint, musty scent rose from the pages, a scent of old paper, ink, and something else. Something indefinable, something that hinted at secrets and hidden depths. I lifted it carefully, my heart pounding in my chest. The leather felt smooth and cool beneath my fingertips. I opened the diary, and the first page was dated 1942. My breath caught in my throat. 1942. Grandma Aurora had never spoken much about her past, about her life before she met my grandfather. She'd always deflected questions with a gentle smile and a vague answer. Now, here was a window into a time she had kept carefully locked away. The first entry was brief, almost cryptic. He left today. The train pulled away, and with it, a piece of my heart. I pray he returns. He? Who was he? My grandfather hadn't left for war until 1944. A wave of dizziness washed over me. This wasn't the story I knew. This wasn't the simple life I had imagined. This was something far more complex, far more profound. I sat there in the dusty attic, sunlight streaming through the grimy windows, and began to read. The words on the page seemed to shimmer, to come alive. I learned of a forbidden love. A love that blossomed amidst the chaos of wartime. A love that was tested by distance, by fear, by unimaginable sacrifice. I learned of secrets that had been buried for decades. Secrets that had shaped her life in ways I could never have imagined. I discovered a woman I never knew existed. A woman of courage, passion, and unwavering strength. A woman who had lived a life filled with both extraordinary joy and devastating heartbreak. A woman who had carried the weight of her secrets with grace and dignity. The diary revealed a legacy that echoed across generations, a legacy of resilience, love, and sacrifice. It spoke of choices made in the face of impossible odds, of promises kept, and of a love that defied the boundaries of time and circumstance. The revelation shook me to my core. My perception of my grandmother, of her entire life, shattered into a million pieces. The open book I thought I knew had hidden chapters filled with secrets and mysteries that were now unfolding before my eyes. I closed the diary, my hands trembling. The weight of it felt immense, not just in my hands but in my heart. I knew that I had stumbled upon something extraordinary, something that would change the way I saw my family, my history, and myself. This diary, this hidden testament, was a gift from beyond the grave. A gift that promised to reveal the truth about a woman I thought I knew, but now realized I had barely scratched the surface of. The secrets it holds are powerful, poignant, and at times heartbreaking. But they are also a testament to the enduring power of love, the strength of the human spirit, and the importance of remembering the stories of those who came before us. If you'd like to keep me company as we explore these memories, please subscribe and stay close. I have a feeling this journey will be long, and perhaps a little difficult, but I believe it's a journey worth taking. Because sometimes the greatest treasures are found not in what is readily visible, but in the hidden corners of our hearts, and in the untold stories of the ones we love. And I have a feeling that Grandma Aurora's story is one that needs to be told. The scent of pressed lavender and old paper rises from these brittle pages, and with it, a forgotten world blooms anew. Willow Creek. The very name hums with the sigh of wind through those weeping trees that line the riverbank. I can almost feel the sun-drenched grass beneath my bare feet again, hear the lazy drone of bees in the clover, taste the sweetness of wild strawberries staining my fingers crimson. Willow Creek wasn't much, not on a map. A scattering of houses nestled in a valley cradled by rolling hills, a general store that sold everything from flour to fishing hooks, a one-room schoolhouse where Miss Abigail patiently tried to instill in us the mysteries of long division and the glories of poetry. There was a church with a steeple that pointed towards heaven, and a quiet little library, the repository of all the stories I ever dreamed of. It was a place where everyone knew everyone, where the rhythms of life were dictated by the seasons, and the biggest excitement was the annual county fair. But to me then it was the whole world. I was Aurora, a girl of 10 summers, with hair the color of sun-ripened wheat and eyes that held the blue of the summer sky after a rain. I wasn't particularly brave or particularly clever, but I possessed a boundless curiosity, a thirst for stories that could never be quenched, and a heart that yearned for something I couldn't quite name. My parents, bless their hard-working souls, were farmers. Their days were filled with the endless toil of tilling the soil, planting seeds, and coaxing life from the earth. They were good people, honest and steadfast, their love for us children as unwavering as the sun that rose each morning. Papa, with his calloused hands and gentle eyes, could coax a stubborn mule into obedience, and tell the most fantastical tales of creatures that lived in the whispering cornfields. Mama, her face etched with the lines of sun and worry, possessed a quiet strength, a resilience that I would later come to understand and admire more than words could ever express. Her hands were always busy mending clothes, baking bread, tending the garden, but she always found time to listen, to offer a comforting word, to smooth away the anxieties that plagued my young heart. We lived in a small farmhouse, painted a cheerful yellow, with a wide porch that wrapped around 3 sides. It was a place of simple comforts, the crackling warmth of the wood-burning stove in winter, the cool shade of the porch on a sweltering summer afternoon, the aroma of Mama's apple pie wafting through the air on Sundays. It wasn't fancy, but it was home, filled with the love and laughter that bound us together. I had 2 siblings. Thomas, my older brother, was a dreamer just like me, but his dreams took flight in the sky. He was obsessed with airplanes, spending hours poring over books and magazines, building model planes from scraps of wood, his head always tilted towards the heavens. He spoke of becoming a pilot, of soaring above the clouds, of seeing the world from a bird's-eye view. Papa, ever practical, would chuckle and tell him to keep his feet on the ground, but I saw the pride in his eyes. Thomas was destined for more than Willow Creek, I knew it, and I both admired and envied his certainty. And then there was Lily, my younger sister, a wisp of a girl with eyes that mirrored the deep green of the forest, and a soul that resonated with poetry. She saw beauty in everything, in the delicate veins of a fallen leaf, in the intricate patterns of a spider's web, in the way the sunlight danced on the surface of the river. She filled notebooks with her poems, verses that spoke of fairies and forgotten kingdoms, of love and loss, of the mysteries that lay hidden beneath the surface of the everyday world. Lily was fragile, sensitive, easily hurt, but she possessed a strength of spirit that belied her delicate frame. She was my confidant, my kindred spirit, the one who understood my unspoken longings, my quiet yearnings for something more. Our days unfolded in a predictable rhythm. Mornings began with the crowing of the rooster, and the smell of Mama's bacon frying in the pan. After a hearty breakfast, Papa and Thomas would head out to the fields, their figures silhouetted against the rising sun. Mama would tend to the house and garden, while Lily and I would either help with chores or escape into our own little worlds. I loved to read. The library was my sanctuary, a place where I could lose myself in the pages of books, travel to faraway lands, and live 1,000 different lives. I devoured stories of brave knights and fair maidens, of daring explorers and mythical creatures. I imagined myself as a princess locked in a tower, waiting to be rescued, or as a fearless adventurer, charting unknown territories. The world outside Willow Creek seemed so vast, so exciting, so full of possibilities. Sometimes, Lily and I would wander down to the riverbank, where we would sit beneath the shade of the willow trees and dream. We would skip stones across the water, weave flower crowns for our hair, and tell each other stories. Lily's stories were always filled with magic and wonder, while mine were more grounded in reality, but both were fueled by the same deep longing for something beyond the confines of our small town. Evenings were spent together as a family. After supper, we would gather on the porch, watching the fireflies dance in the twilight, listening to the crickets chirping in the fields. Papa would tell us stories of his childhood, of the hardships he had faced, and the lessons he had learned. Mama would hum softly as she knitted, her needles clicking rhythmically in the silence. Thomas would point out the constellations in the night sky, explaining the myths and legends that surrounded them. And Lily and I would listen, our hearts filled with a sense of belonging, of being safe and loved. But even in the midst of this idyllic existence, a faint undercurrent of restlessness flowed through me. I felt like a bird trapped in a cage, longing to spread my wings and fly. I knew that Willow Creek was a beautiful place, a safe place, but it felt too small, too contained. I yearned to see the world, to experience new things, to discover my own purpose in life. This feeling intensified as I grew older. I started to notice the subtle changes in the world around me. The news on the radio spoke of distant conflicts, of rising tensions, of a world teetering on the brink of war. I saw the worry in my parents' eyes, the unspoken fear that hung in the air. Even in Willow Creek, the outside world was beginning to intrude. One evening, as we sat on the porch, Thomas pointed out a new star in the sky, a faint glimmer of light that had never been there before. "That's a new airplane route," he explained, his voice filled with excitement. "They're flying further and further now." I looked at that distant light, a tiny spark in the vast darkness, and I felt a strange mixture of emotions, awe, wonder, and a deep sense of unease. It was a reminder that the world was changing, that nothing stayed the same forever. I knew deep down that my life in Willow Creek wouldn't last forever either. I knew that one day I would have to leave, to venture out into the unknown, to face whatever challenges lay ahead. And while I loved my family, my home, my simple life, I couldn't shake the feeling that my destiny lay elsewhere, beyond the rolling hills and the whispering willow trees. It was a quiet yearning, a subtle restlessness, but it was there, simmering beneath the surface of my seemingly peaceful existence. It was the seed of something more, something that would eventually blossom into a life far different from the one I could have ever imagined. A life filled with love and loss, with joy and sorrow, with secrets and sacrifices. A life that would lead me far away from Willow Creek, but would always hold a piece of my heart within its gentle embrace. The scent of lavender grows stronger now, as if the past itself is reaching out, pulling me back into its embrace. The whispering willows seem to sigh a warning, a promise of things to come, both beautiful and terrible. The diary awaits, and with it, the unraveling of a life lived fully, a life that began in the quiet heart of Willow Creek, and then the world. They forgot me on my birthday. Grandma never forgot. The The summer of my 17th year tasted of wild blackberries, sun-baked earth, and a disquiet I couldn't quite name. It wasn't the sweet, melancholy longing I'd felt before, the one that whispered of faraway places and stories I hadn't yet lived. This was different. A low hum beneath the surface of everything, like the tremor before a storm. The world you see was changing. Willow Creek, nestled so deep in its valley that time seemed to move slower here, couldn't remain untouched forever. At first, it was just whispers carried on the wind, snippets of news crackling from the radio in the general store. Talk of countries far away, of men marching and ships sailing, of a war brewing across the ocean. My father, bless his practical heart, dismissed it as politicians grandstanding. "It's always been like this, Aurora," he'd say, adjusting his spectacles and returning to his ledgers. "Wars come and go. They don't reach places like Willow Creek." But my mother, oh, she felt it in her bones. I'd catch her standing by the window, her gaze distant, her hands clasped tightly in her apron. She had brothers scattered across the country, sons of farmers who'd sought their fortunes in the cities, and the thought of them caught in the crosshairs of some foreign conflict kept her awake at night. I could hear her soft prayers drifting through the thin walls of our little house, a litany of names and pleas for safety. Thomas, my brother, saw it all as an adventure. He was itching to leave Willow Creek to see the world, and the war in his naive mind was his ticket. He'd pore over maps in the newspaper, tracing the lines of battle with his finger, his eyes shining with a reckless excitement that both fascinated and terrified me. He imagined himself a hero, a soldier returning home with medals and stories to tell. I tried to explain the reality, the fear in my mother's eyes, the worry etched on my father's face, but Thomas wouldn't listen. He was young, and war from a distance is a siren song to the young. Even the familiar routines of Willow Creek began to shift. Sugar rationing meant Ma's pies weren't quite as sweet. The men gathered at the general store spoke in hushed tones, their faces grim. Letters arrived from cousins and uncles, filled with anxieties and uncertainties. The war, once a distant echo, was getting louder, closer. And I felt adrift. The carefree girl who chased fireflies and dreamed of romance felt like a ghost. The world seemed suddenly enormous and I utterly insignificant. I started questioning everything, the sermons at church, the platitudes spouted by the politicians on the radio, even the simple truths I'd always taken for granted. Was the world really as just and fair as I'd been led to believe? Or was there a darkness lurking beneath the surface, a cruelty that could shatter everything we held dear? It was in the midst of this turmoil, this growing unease, that Elias arrived. He came on the afternoon train, a stranger stepping onto the platform of our sleepy little station. I was there to collect a package for my mother, a bolt of fabric she'd ordered from the city. The train coughed and hissed, releasing a cloud of steam that momentarily obscured everything. When the steam cleared, he was standing there, a lone figure amidst the bustling townsfolk. He was in uniform, but not like the local boys who sometimes wore their fathers' old war relics to town. This was a different kind of uniform, crisply pressed, bearing no insignia I recognized. He stood tall, almost rigidly so, his shoulders squared, his gaze sweeping over the crowd with an intensity that made me catch my breath. He was young, maybe a few years older than me, but there was a weariness in his eyes, a knowledge that seemed to belie his age. His face was angular, almost gaunt, with high cheekbones and a strong jaw. His hair was dark, cropped short, and his skin was tanned, suggesting he'd spent a lot of time outdoors. He wasn't handsome in the way the boys from Willow Creek were handsome. All rosy cheeks and easy smiles. There was a quiet intensity about him, a guardedness that both intrigued and intimidated me. He moved with a grace that seemed out of place in our rough-and-tumble town, a quiet confidence that set him apart. He walked with a purpose, his eyes scanning the faces in the crowd until they landed on me. For a moment our gazes locked and I felt a jolt, a strange electric current that ran through me. His eyes were the color of storm clouds, dark and turbulent, and I felt as though I were looking into the depths of something vast and unknowable. He approached me, his steps measured, his expression unreadable. He stopped a few feet away, and for a moment we simply stood there, the sounds of the train fading into the background, the world shrinking until it contained only the two of us. "Excuse me," he said, his voice low and husky, with a hint of an accent I couldn't quite place. Could you direct me to the Miller farm? The Miller farm was on the outskirts of town, a sprawling property known for its apple orchards and its reclusive owner, old Mr. Miller, who rarely ventured into town. Yes, I said, my voice barely a whisper. It's about a mile that way. I pointed down the dusty road. Just follow the road and you can't miss it. He nodded, his gaze still fixed on me. Thank you, he said. I appreciate your help. He turned to leave but then paused, looking back at me. I'm Elias, he said, extending his hand. Hesitantly, I took his hand. His grip was firm, his skin rough, and again that electric current surged through me. Aurora, I replied. He smiled then, a fleeting, almost sad smile that transformed his face. It's a pleasure to meet you, Aurora, he said. And then he was gone, walking away down the road, his figure receding into the distance. I watched him go, my heart pounding in my chest, 1,000 questions swirling in my mind. Who was he? Why was he here? And why did his presence make me feel both exhilarated and afraid? I learned later that he'd told others he was a distant relative of Mr. Miller, come to help with the harvest. But something about him didn't quite add up. He was too polished, too guarded, too something. He didn't fit in Willow Creek. He was like a rare bird that had somehow found its way into our quiet little valley, a bird that carried secrets in its feathers. Over the next few weeks I saw him around town. He'd help Mrs. Henderson carry her groceries, he'd fix a broken fence for old Mr. Abernathy, he'd even attend the Sunday service at the church. He was polite, helpful, and always kept to himself, but I couldn't shake the feeling that he was watching, observing, always a little apart from everyone else. Our paths would cross occasionally, and each time that same electric current would pass between us. We'd exchange a few words, polite inquiries about the weather or the harvest, but there was always an unspoken tension, a silent understanding that there was more to our encounters than met the eye. I found myself drawn to him, fascinated by his mystery, his quiet strength. He was so different from the boys I'd grown up with, the boys who talked of baseball and farm chores and nothing else. Elias seemed to carry the weight of the world on his shoulders, a burden he bore with a quiet dignity. I started spending more time near the Miller farm, inventing excuses to be in the area. I'd walk along the creek, pretending to sketch in my notebook, or I'd help Mrs. Abernathy gather eggs, knowing that I might catch a glimpse of him working in the orchards. One afternoon I found him sitting by the creek, his uniform jacket discarded on the grass beside him, his sleeves rolled up, his face streaked with dirt. He was whittling a piece of wood, his brow furrowed in concentration. I hesitated for a moment, unsure whether to approach him. But the pull was too strong, the curiosity too overwhelming. "Hello, Elias," I said softly. He looked up, startled, and then smiled that same fleeting sad smile. "Aurora," he said. "What brings you out here?" "Just taking a walk," I said, feeling foolish. He nodded, returning to his whittling. The silence stretched between us, thick with unspoken words. Finally, I couldn't stand it anymore. "What are you doing here, Elias?" I asked. "Really?" He stopped whittling, his gaze fixed on the piece of wood in his hands. He was silent for a long time, and I thought he wasn't going to answer. "It's complicated," he said finally, his voice low. "I can see that," I replied. "But I think I deserve to know something." He looked up at me then, his storm cloud eyes searching mine. "You don't," he said softly. "You're better off not knowing." "Why?" I asked. He sighed, running a hand through his dark hair. "Because knowing would put you in danger," he said. Danger. The word hung in the air between us, heavy and ominous. It confirmed my suspicions, the feeling that Elias was more than he seemed, that his presence in Willow Creek was not as innocent as he claimed. "I'm not afraid," I said, though my voice trembled slightly. He looked at me, his expression unreadable. "You should be," he said. "You all should be." He didn't elaborate, and I didn't press him. I knew instinctively that he wouldn't tell me anything more. But his words had planted a seed of fear in my heart, a seed that would grow and blossom into something far more terrifying than I could have ever imagined. That day, as I walked home, the world felt different. The sun seemed less bright, the birds less cheerful. The war, which had been a distant rumble, now felt like a storm gathering on the horizon, And Elias, I knew, was somehow connected to it. My life, I realized, was about to change. The carefree days of my youth were over. The innocence of Willow Creek was fading. And I, Aurora, was standing on the precipice of something dangerous, something unknown, something that would forever alter the course of my life. And Grandma, she knew it all along. She saw the storm coming, even when I was too naive to understand. She knew that Elias was the harbinger, the first crack in the facade of our peaceful existence. She knew that the world was about to ask more of me than I ever thought possible. And she knew that I would answer. Because that's what women of our family do. We answer the call no matter the cost. The memory of my birthday, a day swallowed by the encroaching darkness, still pricks at me. They forgot. My own family, caught in the tightening grip of fear and rationing, simply forgot. But not Grandma. She never forgot. Even now, decades later, the sting of that day is softened only by the warmth of remembering her unwavering love. It was Elias who found me that evening, sitting on the porch swing, the chill October air doing little to numb the ache in my heart. He held a small, intricately carved wooden bird, a wren, I think, its wings outstretched as if poised for flight. "For you," he said, his voice a low rumble that seemed to vibrate through me. "Happy belated birthday, Aurora. I may not have known it was today, but I felt you needed something." The wren was beautiful, a tiny beacon of hope in a world growing increasingly gray. That night, we met under the cloak of a moonless sky, hidden behind the overgrown rose bushes at the edge of the orchard. The air was thick with the scent of decaying apples, a sweet, melancholy fragrance that mirrored the state of my heart. It was there, amidst the whispering leaves and the shadows, that our secret began to blossom. Elias was a man of quiet intensity, his eyes holding a sadness that resonated deep within me. He spoke of science and music, of the stars and the intricate workings of the human heart. He listened with a patience I had never known before, truly listened, as if my words held the secrets of the universe. He noticed the small things, the way I brushed a stray strand of hair from my face, the way my hands trembled when I held a cup of tea. He saw me, truly saw me, in a way no one ever had. Our stolen moments became my refuge. We met in the abandoned mill on the outskirts of town, the creaking water wheel a constant, rhythmic heartbeat to our whispered conversations. We shared dreams and fears, hopes and regrets, weaving a tapestry of connection that defied the chaos around us. I found myself falling in love with him, a love that felt both fragile and impossibly strong, like a wildflower blooming in the heart of a storm. Then came the night he confided in me. The mill was shrouded in an eerie silence, the water wheel still and lifeless. He paced restlessly, his brow furrowed with worry. "Aurora," he began, his voice barely a whisper, "I haven't been entirely honest with you." He told me of his past, of his work as a physicist in Germany, his growing disillusionment with the Nazi regime, his desperate attempt to escape. He revealed that he was a deserter, hunted by both sides, a man without a country. But more than that, he told me about his mission. His mentor, a brilliant clockmaker named Herr Schmidt, had been working on a revolutionary encryption device, a machine capable of encoding messages so securely that they would be virtually unbreakable. The Nazis were desperate to get their hands on it, but Schmidt, horrified by their intentions, had hidden it away, entrusting the secret of its location to Elias. "It's called the Chronos cipher," Elias said, his voice heavy with the weight of his responsibility. "Schmidt believed it could be used to prevent unimaginable destruction. He entrusted it to me, but I need your help, Aurora. I can't do this alone." The weight of his confession settled upon me, heavy and suffocating. My heart pounded in my chest, a frantic drumbeat against the silence of the mill. This was no longer a simple love story. It was a dangerous game, a battle against forces far greater than ourselves. And as if to underscore the growing danger, a chilling wind began to blow through Willow Creek. Strangers arrived in town, their faces etched with suspicion, their eyes constantly scanning the streets. They asked questions, seemingly innocent inquiries about the weather and the local crops, but their true purpose was clear. They were looking for something or someone. Nazi agents disguised as civilians had infiltrated our quiet community, their presence a venomous poison seeping into the very fabric of our lives. Fear became a constant companion, whispering insidious doubts in my ear. Was Elias safe? Was my family safe? Was I putting them all at risk by harboring a fugitive, by becoming entangled in this dangerous game? One afternoon, Elias and I were poring over Schmidt's cryptic notes in the mill. The clockmaker had left behind a series of riddles and puzzles, clues to the cipher's location hidden within his intricate clockwork designs. As we worked, I noticed a recurring symbol, a stylized image of the old church bell tower. It was then that I remembered something my grandmother had told me about the church, about a hidden labyrinth beneath its foundations, a secret passage used by the early settlers to escape persecution. Could it be? Could the Chronos cipher be hidden beneath the church? The idea seemed both ludicrous and terrifyingly plausible. That night, armed with a flickering lantern and a heart pounding with fear, we descended into the darkness beneath the church. The air was thick with the scent of damp earth and ancient stone. Cobwebs clung to our faces like ghostly veils. As we navigated the labyrinthine tunnels, I could feel the weight of history pressing down upon me, the echoes of forgotten voices whispering in the darkness. Finally, after what seemed like an eternity, we found it. A hidden chamber, concealed behind a crumbling stone wall. Inside, resting on a pedestal, was a small ornate box, its surface covered in intricate carvings. This was it, the Chronos cipher. But as I reached for the box, a wave of doubt washed over me. Was I doing the right thing? Was I strong enough to face the consequences of my actions? My love for Elias was undeniable, but what about my family? What about the innocent people of Willow Creek? Was I sacrificing them all for a man I barely knew? That night, I poured my heart out into my diary, the pages stained with tears and ink. I wrote of my fears, my doubts, my unwavering devotion to Elias. I wrote of my shifting sense of identity, of my growing realization that I was no longer the innocent girl I once was. The war had changed me, stripped away my naivete, and forced me to confront the harsh realities of the world. I knew then that I had reached a crossroads. I could turn back, retreat into the safety of my former life, or I could embrace the challenge, step into the darkness, and fight for what I believed in. The choice was mine and mine alone. And as I closed my diary, a sense of quiet resolve settled upon me. I would not abandon Elias. I would not let the Chronos cipher fall into the wrong hands. I would do whatever it took to protect the man I loved, and to safeguard the future of my community. The little girl who grieved a forgotten birthday was gone. In her place stood a woman ready to face the storm. The air hung thick and cold, a dampness that seeped into my bones as we descended the final steps. Each footfall echoed in the oppressive silence, a silence so profound it felt like the earth itself was holding its breath. Elias held the lantern high, its beam dancing across the walls, revealing rough-hewn stone slick with moisture. The air smelled of dust and something else, something ancient and metallic like dried blood. We were in the hidden chamber. Before us stood a large, iron-bound door, its surface etched with intricate clockwork designs. Elias ran a gloved hand over it, tracing the gears and levers. His signature, he murmured, a hint of reverence in his voice. Old man Hemmings was a genius. He began to work, his fingers moving with a practiced dexterity that belied the tremor of anticipation in his hands. He produced a series of small tools, picks, miniature screwdrivers, tiny wrenches, each glinting in the lantern light. The only sound was the soft click of metal against metal, the rhythmic tick of a hidden mechanism responding to his touch. Minutes stretched into an eternity. My heart hammered against my ribs, a frantic drumbeat against the silence. I could feel the weight of the Luger tucked into my waistband, a cold comfort against the unknown. I kept glancing over my shoulder, my senses straining for any sign of pursuit. I knew they were close, too close. Finally, with a groan of protesting metal, the door swung inward, revealing a small circular chamber. In the center, resting on a stone pedestal, was a device unlike anything I had ever seen. It was made of polished brass and gleaming crystal, a complex network of gears, lenses, and wires. It hummed with a faint, almost imperceptible energy. "The chronometer," Elias breathed, his voice filled with awe. He took a step towards it, but I grabbed his arm. "Elias, wait. Something doesn't feel right." He looked at me, his brow furrowed. "What do you mean?" "I don't know. Just be careful." He nodded, his eyes still fixed on the chronometer. He reached out, his fingers hovering just above the surface. And then the silence shattered. A deafening crash echoed through the chamber as the stone wall behind us exploded inward, sending shards of rock and dust flying. Figures in dark uniforms poured into the room, their faces grim, their weapons raised. Nazis! They had found us. Aurora, run! Elias yelled, shoving me towards the open doorway. I stumbled, my hand instinctively reaching for the Luger. The air filled with the sharp crack of gunfire. I saw Elias dive for cover behind the pedestal, returning fire with his own pistol. Panic surged through me, but I knew I couldn't freeze. I had to get out. I had to protect the chronometer. I squeezed through the doorway, back into the labyrinthine corridors. The sounds of the gunfight echoed behind me, growing fainter as I ran. I knew these passages, every twist and turn, every hidden alcove. Elias had taught me well. I raced through the darkness, my lungs burning, my legs aching. I could hear the Nazis pursuing me, their heavy boots pounding on the stone floor. I risked a glance over my shoulder and saw them gaining on me. I ducked into a narrow passage, barely wide enough to squeeze through. I knew this led to a dead end, but there was a hidden door, a secret escape route that Old Man Hemmings had shown me years ago. I reached the end of the passage and frantically searched for the mechanism to open the door. It was hidden behind a loose stone, cleverly disguised. My fingers trembled as I pried it loose. The door swung open, revealing a dark, narrow tunnel. I didn't hesitate. I plunged inside, pulling the door shut behind me. I scrambled through the tunnel, crawling on my hands and knees. The air was stale and suffocating. I could hear the Nazis cursing and banging on the door behind me, but it was holding. For now. Finally, I reached the end of the tunnel and pushed open another hidden door, emerging into the crypt beneath the church. I stood for a moment, catching my breath, listening for any sign of pursuit. Silence. I leaned against the cold stone wall, my body shaking, my mind reeling. I had escaped, but at what cost? I thought of Elias back in the chamber facing the Nazis alone. A wave of nausea washed over me. I had to go back. I couldn't leave him. But then I remembered the chronometer. The reason we had come here. The future of France, perhaps the world, depended on it. I reached into my coat pocket and pulled out the small leather-bound diary. It was damp and stained with dirt, but it was intact. I flipped it open to a blank page and began to write, my hand trembling. Asterisk, Elias is gone. I left him. I had to. For the chronometer. For France. Asterisk, the words blurred through my tears. I closed the diary and clutched it to my chest, a small piece of sanity in the chaos. I knew what I had to do. I had to get the chronometer to safety. I had to complete the mission. I had to honor Elias's sacrifice. But first I had to go back. I crept back through the tunnel, my heart pounding in my chest. I emerged into the chamber, my senses on high alert. The scene that greeted me was one of utter devastation. The chamber was littered with debris, the air thick with smoke and the acrid smell of gunpowder. The pedestal was overturned, the chronometer lying on the floor, its crystal shattered. And then I saw him. Elias was lying on his back, his eyes closed, his face pale. A dark stain spread across his chest. I rushed to his side, kneeling beside him. Elias! I cried, shaking him gently. Elias, wake up! His eyes fluttered open, and he looked at me, a faint smile gracing his lips. Aurora, he whispered. You're safe. Elias, I'm so sorry. I should have stayed. I shouldn't have left you. He reached out and took my hand, his grip weak. Don't, he said, his voice barely audible. You did what you had to do. You saved the chronometer. He coughed, a ragged, painful sound. Blood trickled from his lips. Elias, please. Don't talk. Save your strength. He shook his head. It's too late, he whispered. But it's okay. I'm not afraid. He looked at me, his eyes filled with a love that transcended words. Aurora, he said. He never finished the sentence. His eyes glazed over, his hand went limp in mine, and he was gone. I sat there for a long time, holding his hand, tears streaming down my face. The world seemed to fade away, leaving only the pain, the grief, the unbearable emptiness. He was gone. My Elias. My love. My friend. Gone forever. But even in my grief, I knew that I couldn't stay there. I had to move. I had to survive. I had to carry on his legacy. I gently closed his eyes and kissed his forehead. "I won't let you down," I whispered. "I promise." I picked up the chronometer, its broken crystal cutting into my hand. I didn't care. I had a mission to complete. I left the chamber, leaving Elias behind. It was the hardest thing I had ever done. As I made my way back through the labyrinth, I felt a change within me. A hardening. A resolve. The naive, innocent girl I had been was gone. In her place was a woman forged in fire. Tempered by loss, driven by purpose. I was Aurora now, the keeper of the chronometer. The protector of a secret that could change the course of history. And I would not fail. I wrote in the diary again that night. In a safe house miles away, my hand still shaking. He's gone. But I'm not. I will carry his love, his courage, his sacrifice with me always. The chronometer is damaged but not broken. Like me. I don't know what the future holds, but I know what I have to do. I will protect this device no matter the cost. For Elias. For France. For the future. That night I didn't sleep. I stared out the window at the dark, silent city, and I knew that my life had changed forever. I was no longer just Aurora. I was something more. Something other. And Grandma? Grandma never forgot. Never forgot the cold. Never forgot the fear. And most of all, never forgot the love that burned even brighter in the face of such darkness. Never forgot Elias. He lived on, you see, in every beat of my heart, every decision I made, every word I wrote. His sacrifice became my strength, his love my guiding star. And that, my dear, is how a simple girl became the keeper of a secret that shaped a world. The scrape of my shoes on stone was the only sound. The air, thick with dust and the scent of something ancient and metallic, clung to my throat. I didn't run. I couldn't. My legs felt like lead, each step a conscious effort. I just kept moving, away from the labyrinth, away from the echo of Elias's last words. The world outside was shockingly bright. I blinked, disoriented. The familiar trees, the sleepy afternoon sun. It all felt wrong, like a stage set for a play I no longer understood. I stumbled toward home, a hollow ache blooming in my chest. They were waiting, of course. My sister, Clara, her face etched with worry. My brother-in-law, Thomas, trying to look stoic but failing. They rushed to me, their voices a worried hum. I let them fuss, let them guide me inside. Let them settle me on the sofa. I answered their questions with short, clipped words. An accident. That's what they'd been told. A tragic accident. I saw the disbelief in their eyes, the questions they didn't voice. But they wanted to believe the lie, needed to believe it. It was easier than the truth. And I couldn't give them the truth. Not yet. Maybe not ever. Later, after they'd gone, after the house had settled into an uneasy quiet, I went to the bathroom. I avoided my reflection. The face staring back wouldn't be mine. It would be haunted, marked by what I had seen, what I had done. I couldn't bear it. I changed into my oldest pajamas, the soft cotton a small comfort against my bruised skin. I didn't eat. I couldn't swallow. Food felt like ash in my mouth. I went to my room, closed the door, and crawled into bed. The silence was deafening. It pressed against me, suffocating me. I closed my eyes, but all I saw was Elias. His smile, the way his eyes crinkled at the corners when he was deep in thought, the determined set of his jaw. And then the last image. His face bathed in that unearthly light as he made his choice. I reached under the mattress, my fingers brushing against the cold, smooth surface of the artifact. I pulled it out, cradling it in my hands. It felt heavier now, burdened with Elias's sacrifice. I stared at it, trying to understand what it was, what it meant. But it remained an enigma, a silent, unyielding mystery. I hid it again, deeper this time, burying it beneath layers of old blankets and forgotten keepsakes. It felt wrong to have it, to be the one left standing. He should have been here. He should have been the one to carry this weight. Sleep didn't come. The night stretched on, an endless expanse of grief and regret. I tossed and turned, haunted by memories, tormented by what-ifs. When the first rays of dawn crept through the curtains, I felt like I'd aged a lifetime. I rose, stiff and aching, and went to the small desk in the corner of my room. It was there, tucked away in the bottom drawer beneath a stack of old letters, that I found it. Grandma Aurora's diary. I hadn't opened it in years. It was a relic of a different time, a different life. but now it felt like the only thing that could anchor me. I hesitated, my hand hovering over the worn leather cover. What would I write? How could I possibly capture the enormity of what had happened? Finally, I opened it. The familiar scent of old paper and ink filled my nostrils. I flipped through the pages, my eyes skimming over entries from years past. Childhood memories, teenage crushes, the joys and sorrows of early adulthood. It all seemed so trivial now, so distant. I found a blank page, picked up a pen and began to write. The words came slowly at first, halting and awkward. But as I wrote, the dam inside me began to crack. The grief poured out, raw and unfiltered. I wrote about Elias, about the labyrinth, about the sacrifice he had made. I wrote about the unbearable weight of the secret I now carried. The words were messy, disjointed, filled with anger and pain. But they were honest. They were real. And in that moment, they were the only thing that kept me from shattering completely. I wrote for hours until my hand cramped and my eyes burned. When I finally stopped, the page was filled with scribbled words, a testament to the chaos that raged within me. I closed the diary, my fingers tracing the worn leather. It was a small thing, a simple book. But it was my lifeline. It was the one place where I could be honest, where I could grieve, where I could try to make sense of the senseless. The days that followed were a blur. I moved through the motions of life, but I felt like a ghost, detached from everything around me. My family tried to comfort me, but their words felt hollow. They couldn't understand what I was going through. They couldn't see the darkness that had taken root inside me. I avoided mirrors. I flinched at the sound of my name. I ate little, slept less. The world felt muted, drained of color. One afternoon, while my sister was visiting, I found myself drawn to Elias's old room. It had been left untouched since he'd moved out, a shrine to a life that was now gone. I knew I shouldn't be there, that my presence would only stir up more pain. But I couldn't resist the pull. The room was small and cluttered, filled with books, maps, and half-finished projects. It smelled of dust and old paper, a familiar scent that brought tears to my eyes. I ran my fingers over the spines of his books, remembering the countless hours we'd spent discussing them, debating their merits, losing ourselves in their stories. He had loved knowledge, loved the pursuit of understanding. He had always been searching for something just beyond the horizon. I opened his desk, rummaging through the drawers. I found notebooks filled with his handwriting, sketches of strange symbols, and maps of forgotten places. I found a file labeled Project Aurora. My breath caught in my throat. Inside, I found pages of research, notes on ancient civilizations, and theories about the artifact. There were also diagrams, meticulously drawn, of the labyrinth. And then I saw it. A small folded piece of paper, tucked away in the back of the file. I unfolded it carefully. It was a map, a more detailed map of the labyrinth than any I had ever seen. And on the back, in Elias's handwriting, were a series of numbers and symbols. A code. A spark ignited within me. It was small, flickering, but it was there. Purpose. A reason to keep going. Elias had left me a trail, a path to follow. And I would follow it no matter where it led. I closed the file, my heart pounding in my chest. I knew what I had to do. I had to understand the artifact. I had to decipher the code. I had to continue Elias's work. That night, after everyone was asleep, I crept out of bed and went to the local library. The librarian, a kind elderly woman, gave me a sympathetic smile. I asked for books on ancient history, mythology, and cryptography. She didn't ask questions. She just pointed me in the right direction. I spent hours in the library, poring over books, searching for clues. I felt like I was drowning in information, but I refused to give up. I had to understand. I had to know. As the first rays of dawn peeked through the windows, I felt a glimmer of hope. I had found a reference to a symbol that matched one in Elias's code. It was a symbol of protection, a ward against evil. It was a start. I returned home, exhausted but determined. I hid the books in my room, careful to avoid detection. I knew that what I was doing was dangerous, that I was stepping into a world I didn't fully understand. But I couldn't turn back. Elias had trusted me with this task, and I wouldn't let him down. My birthday came and went. No one remembered. Or maybe they did, but they thought it best not to mention it given the circumstances. It didn't matter. I didn't care. Birthdays were for the living, and a part of me had died with Elias. Grandma Aurora never forgot. I remember that now with a clarity that aches. She would have understood. She would have known the weight I carried, the burden I bore. She would have been proud. And that, more than anything, gave me the strength to keep going. The train rattled, a metal beast shaking me awake from a fitful sleep. Willow Creek, a place I'd known since the cradle, shrunk in the distance, fading into a blur of green and brown. It felt like severing a limb, leaving it behind. The air tasted different, metallic and gritty, as the city, a concrete leviathan, swallowed us whole. They forgot me on my birthday that year. A small thing perhaps, but it stung. It was the first birthday without Elias, and even the ghosts of celebration were absent. Grandma, bless her soul, never forgot. I found a room, a tiny space above a bakery on a street that never slept. The aroma of sweet dough was a comfort, a small anchor in the vast, indifferent city. It smelled of warmth, of a life I was desperately trying to rebuild. My few belongings, Elias's diary, and the artifact tucked safely away, were all I had left of my past. Elias's diary became my Bible, his spidery handwriting a guiding hand in the darkness. He had filled it with observations, theories, and cryptic notes about the artifact. It wasn't just a cipher, a complex lockbox for secrets. It was something far more potent, something that hummed with a subtle energy, a sleeping intelligence. He believed it could decipher the enemy's plans, anticipate their moves, and turn the tide of the war. The library became my sanctuary. I devoured books on cryptography, history, linguistics, anything that might unlock the artifact's secrets. The scent of aged paper and leather was intoxicating, a balm to my restless spirit. I spent hours poring over dusty tomes, Elias's words echoing in my mind. I learned about Alan Turing, about Enigma, about the desperate race to crack codes that could save lives. The city was a school in itself. I learned to blend in, to become invisible. I watched, I listened, I absorbed. I studied the way people moved, the way they spoke, the way they concealed their thoughts. I learned to read faces, to detect the subtle cues that betrayed hidden intentions. It was a skill I never thought I'd need, but Elias had always said, "Knowledge is the greatest weapon, Aurora. Never stop learning." I started frequenting cafes, lingering over cups of weak coffee, eavesdropping on conversations. I learned to distinguish the accents of different regions, to identify military jargon, to pick up on the rumors that swirled through the city like dust devils. I scribbled notes in a small notebook, hidden beneath the table, my heart pounding with each stolen piece of information. It felt dangerous, exhilarating, and utterly necessary. The artifact itself was a constant puzzle. I spent hours tracing its intricate carvings, feeling the cool metal against my fingertips. I experimented with different frequencies, different patterns, trying to unlock its hidden potential. It was slow, painstaking work, punctuated by moments of frustration and despair. But then one evening, as the city hummed outside my window, something shifted. A faint glow emanated from the artifact, a soft pulse of light that illuminated the room. I held my breath, my heart racing. The carvings seemed to rearrange themselves, forming new patterns, new symbols. I realized then that it wasn't just about deciphering codes. It was about understanding the language of the enemy, their strategies, their weaknesses. It was about knowing what they were going to do before they did it. My loneliness was a constant companion. The city was full of people, but I was utterly alone, burdened by a secret I could share with no one. I missed Elias terribly. I missed his laughter, his wisdom, his unwavering belief in me. Sometimes at night I would sit by the window, watching the lights of the city twinkle like distant stars, and I would imagine him beside me, his arm around my shoulder, whispering words of encouragement. But the loneliness also fueled my determination. I knew that I had to succeed, not just for myself, but for Elias, for Grandma, for everyone who had lost so much. I had to protect the artifact, to prevent it from falling into the wrong hands. I had to use it to fight back, to make a difference in this terrible war. One afternoon, while browsing through a used bookstore, I noticed a man watching me. He was tall and gaunt, with cold, piercing eyes and a scar that snaked across his cheek. He wore a dark coat and a fedora, pulled low over his forehead. He looked out of place, like a predator lurking in the shadows. He followed me out of the bookstore, his footsteps echoing behind me. I quickened my pace, my heart pounding in my chest. I ducked into a crowded market, weaving through the stalls trying to lose him in the throng. I could feel his eyes on me burning into my back. I managed to slip into a side street, a narrow alleyway filled with overflowing garbage cans. I pressed myself against the wall, holding my breath, listening for his approach. The alley was dark and silent, except for the dripping of water from a leaky pipe. Then I heard it. A faint footstep, a rustle of fabric. He was close. I closed my eyes, picturing Elias's face, drawing strength from his memory. I knew that I couldn't let him catch me. I had to protect the artifact no matter the cost. I took a deep breath and stepped out of the alleyway, walking calmly onto the street. I pretended not to notice him, focusing on my surroundings, trying to appear nonchalant. I knew that he was still watching me, but I couldn't let him see my fear. I continued walking, my mind racing, trying to devise a plan. I needed to get back to my room to secure the artifact, but I couldn't lead him there. I had to lose him first. I ducked into a movie theater, buying a ticket for a matinee. I sat in the back row, watching the shadows flicker across the screen, my mind far away from the silver screen romance unfolding before me. I stayed until the end of the movie, then slipped out into the night, hoping that he was gone. But he wasn't. He was waiting for me, leaning against a lamppost across the street. His eyes met mine, and a cold smile spread across his face. I knew then that this was just the beginning. The hunt was on, and I was the prey. I learned to live with the fear, to embrace it as a constant companion. It sharpened my senses, made me more alert, more resourceful. I learned to trust my instincts, to rely on my own abilities. I was no longer the naive girl who had left Willow Creek. I was something else, something stronger, something more dangerous. I was a guardian, a protector, a warrior. And I would do whatever it took to protect the artifact, to honor Elias's memory, and to fight for a future where birthdays weren't marked by loss and fear, but by the warmth of family and the promise of peace. I knew Grandma Aurora would have been proud. She always said I had a strength I didn't even know I possessed. Perhaps finally I was beginning to believe her. The war, you see, wasn't just fought with guns and tanks. It was fought in whispers, in coded messages, in the desperate hope that truth could travel faster than bullets. And your Grandma Aurora, bless her courageous heart, became a vital artery in that network of hope. The little artifact, the music box Elias had gifted her, wasn't just a pretty trinket anymore. It was a conduit, a key. She learned to manipulate its intricate mechanisms, to coax it into singing secrets across the airwaves. The attic of that old house in Willow Creek, once a refuge from the world, became a clandestine hub. Late nights were spent hunched over the box, her fingers tracing the worn carvings, her brow furrowed in concentration. The air hummed with a nervous energy, a silent prayer that her efforts would make a difference. She transmitted information, troop movements, supply routes, intercepted communications. It was a dangerous game, one wrong note, one slip of the tongue and everything would crumble. But she was meticulous, driven by a fierce love for Elias and a burning desire to see the war end. Sometimes she'd catch a glimpse of his face in the flickering candlelight, a phantom image superimposed over the dials and wires. It was his memory, his belief in her that kept her going. There were close calls, moments where the shadows seemed to lengthen and the floorboards groaned under the weight of suspicion. Once, a suspicious officer, his eyes narrowed and glinting with distrust, came to the house asking questions about strange radio signals. Aurora, her heart pounding against her ribs like a trapped bird, calmly offered him tea, distracting him with tales of her late husband, a local farmer. She spoke of Elias's love for the land, the changing seasons, the simple beauty of Willow Creek. The officer, perhaps disarmed by her apparent innocence, eventually left, his suspicions momentarily allayed. But the constant tension took its toll. The vibrant young woman who had arrived in Willow Creek was slowly being replaced by someone quieter, more introspective. The laughter lines around her eyes deepened, etched by worry and sleepless nights. Yet there was a steely resolve in her gaze, a determination that wouldn't be extinguished. And then the tide began to turn. The information she provided, pieced together with data from other sources, helped the Allied forces gain strategic advantages. A crucial supply depot was destroyed, crippling the enemy's ability to resupply. A planned offensive was thwarted, saving countless lives. Aurora never knew the full extent of her impact, but she sensed it, felt it in the subtle shifts in the air, in the hushed whispers on the radio. The day the war ended was unlike anything she could have imagined. It wasn't a triumphant roar, but a sigh of collective relief that seemed to sweep across the world. The news crackled over the radio, announcing the surrender, the end of the bloodshed. Aurora sat in her attic, the music box silent for the first time in years, tears streaming down her face. They were tears of joy, of course, but also tears of grief, of exhaustion, of the profound loss that had shaped her life. Elias was gone, and nothing would ever be quite the same. The silence that followed the announcement was deafening. The world outside erupted in celebration, but in the attic, there was only a quiet stillness. She closed her eyes, picturing Elias, his smile, his gentle touch. She knew in her heart that he would have been proud of her. After the war, Aurora didn't seek recognition or accolades. She craved only peace, a chance to rebuild her life and to honor the memory of those who had been lost. She remained in Willow Creek, but the town, like her, had been irrevocably changed. Many young men hadn't returned, leaving behind grieving families and a community struggling to heal. Aurora found her purpose in helping them. She volunteered at the local school, teaching children whose fathers would never come home. She organized community events, bringing people together to share stories and to find solace in each other's company. She became a pillar of strength, a source of comfort for those who had lost so much. She tended to her garden, nurturing the earth and coaxing life from the soil. It was a simple act, but it was deeply therapeutic, a way to reconnect with the natural world and to find beauty in the midst of devastation. The flowers she grew were vibrant and fragrant, a testament to her resilience and her unwavering belief in the power of hope. And slowly the years passed. The pain of loss never completely disappeared, but it softened, becoming a part of the tapestry of her life. She learned to live with the memories, to cherish the moments of joy and to find meaning in the present. She became the Grandma Aurora you knew, the woman with the warm smile and the twinkling eyes, the woman who always had a kind word and a comforting embrace. She never spoke much about the war, about her role in it. It was a chapter of her life that she kept carefully guarded, a secret locked away in the depths of her heart. But sometimes when she thought no one was listening, she would hum a faint melody, a tune that echoed the music of the box, the music of Elias. The music box itself remained in the attic, tucked away inside an old wooden chest. It was no longer a tool of espionage, but a cherished relic, a tangible link to the past. Sometimes she would take it out, dust it off and run her fingers over its smooth surface. She wouldn't play it, not anymore. The memories it held were too bittersweet, too poignant. But she would hold it close, feeling the weight of its history, the weight of her love for Elias. And that's how I came to understand her, you see. It wasn't just the diary, but the way she lived her life after the war. The quiet strength, the unwavering compassion, the deep sense of peace that radiated from her. It all stemmed from that extraordinary past, from the sacrifices she had made, from the love that had sustained her. She wasn't just a grandmother baking cookies and telling stories. She was a survivor, a warrior, a woman who had played a crucial role in shaping the course of history. And yet, she never sought recognition, never boasted about her accomplishments. She simply lived her life with grace and dignity, embodying the values she held dear. I remember one evening sitting on her porch, watching the sunset paint the sky in hues of orange and purple. I asked her tentatively about the war, about Elias. She looked at me, her eyes filled with a mixture of sadness and understanding. Life, she said, her voice soft and raspy, is a series of choices, my dear. We can't always control what happens to us, but we can control how we respond. Love, even in the darkest of times, is always worth fighting for. And in that moment I understood. I understood the depth of her love for Elias, the courage that had driven her, the peace that she had finally found. She wasn't just my grandmother. She was a hero, a beacon of hope in a world that often felt hopeless. And I was so incredibly proud to be her granddaughter. They forgot her birthday that year, my parents and uncles and aunts. A simple oversight, I'm sure, but it stung nonetheless. I remember seeing the flicker of disappointment in her eyes, quickly masked by a gentle smile. But I knew that it wasn't just about a birthday. It was about feeling seen, feeling remembered. And then she looked at me, a knowing glint in her eye. Never mind, darling, she said, squeezing my hand. Grandma never forgets, and that's all that matters. And in that moment, I realized that I had inherited something far more valuable than any material possession. I had inherited her story, her wisdom, her love. And I knew that it was my responsibility to keep her memory alive, to share her story with the world, so that she would never be forgotten, so that people would know the extraordinary woman who lived a seemingly ordinary life, the woman who taught me the true meaning of courage, sacrifice, and love. Because Grandma Aurora never forgot, and neither will I. The weight of the diary settled in my hands, a comforting presence in the otherwise quiet room. Outside, the late afternoon sun cast long shadows, painting the familiar landscape in hues of gold and amber. It had been several days since I first stumbled upon Aurora's hidden words, several days spent immersed in her world, her secrets, her strength. Now, as I held the worn leather cover, I realized I was holding more than just a collection of memories. I was holding a piece of her soul. The sting of my birthday, the overlooked celebration, felt distant now, almost insignificant. The truth was my birthdays had always been a little bittersweet, a reminder of the growing distance between myself and the people I loved. But Aurora never forgot. Even after she was gone, her presence lingered in the carefully chosen cards she'd bought years in advance, the familiar scent of lavender that clung to her old sweaters. And now, through this diary, I understood why. For her, remembering wasn't just an obligation. It was an act of love, a way of weaving herself into the fabric of our lives, ensuring we knew we were cherished. Rereading the diary, I wasn't just seeing the facts of her life. I was seeing the spirit that animated them. The dates and places, the names and events, all faded into the background, replaced by the vivid portrait of a woman who refused to be defined by her circumstances. Her early life, marked by hardship and sacrifice, had always seemed like a distant, almost mythical tale. But now I understood the quiet resilience that had carried her through. It wasn't some grand theatrical defiance. It was a steady, unwavering commitment to finding joy and meaning in the smallest of things. A wildflower blooming in a barren field, a shared laugh with a friend, the comforting rhythm of her sewing machine. These were the anchors that kept her grounded. The stories she used to tell me, the simple fairy tales and fantastical adventures, took on a new resonance. As a child, I had listened with wide-eyed wonder, captivated by the brave princesses and the cunning foxes. Now I recognized them as metaphors, veiled reflections of her own life. The princess trapped in a tower, patiently waiting for rescue, was Aurora herself, navigating the constraints of a society that limited women's choices. The cunning fox, outsmarting the powerful wolf, was her own quiet rebellion against injustice. She had woven her wisdom into these stories, planting seeds of courage and resilience in my young heart, long before I could understand their true meaning. I remembered her hands, gnarled and worn from years of hard work, yet surprisingly gentle as she brushed a stray hair from my forehead. Those hands had planted gardens, mended clothes, and written countless letters. They were hands that had known both hardship and comfort, hands that had held me close when I was scared, and hands that had guided me toward the light. Those hands were now silent, but their story lived on, etched in the lines of the diary, whispered in the rustling leaves of the old oak tree in her garden. Aurora's legacy wasn't about the secrets she kept hidden or the artifacts she left behind. It was about the quiet strength she embodied, the wisdom she shared through her stories, and the unconditional love she poured into every aspect of her life. It was about the richness and complexity of a life lived fully, even in the face of adversity. It was a legacy woven into the very fabric of my being. I thought about my own life, my own struggles. I had often felt adrift, unsure of my path, overwhelmed by the challenges that lay ahead. But now, as I looked back at Aurora's journey, I felt a surge of renewed hope. She had faced far greater obstacles, and yet she had persevered, finding beauty and meaning in the midst of chaos. Her story was a testament to the enduring power of the human spirit, a reminder that even in the darkest of times, we can find the strength to keep going. The diary wasn't just a historical document. It was a map to her soul. It showed me the contours of her heart, the depths of her compassion, and the unwavering strength of her spirit. It was a reminder that we are all connected, bound together by the shared experiences of joy and sorrow, love and loss. And it was a call to action, urging me to live my own life with the same courage, grace, and authenticity that she had embodied. The weight on my chest, the familiar ache of grief, began to dissipate, replaced by a sense of peace and clarity. I understood now that Aurora hadn't really left me. She was still here, in the stories she told, in the lessons she taught, in the love that flowed between us, a love that transcended time and space. And she was here most profoundly in the diary, a tangible reminder of her enduring presence. I closed the diary, holding it close to my heart. It was more than just a book. It was a treasure, a guide, a lifeline. It was a reminder that even in the face of loss, we can find hope and inspiration in the stories of those who came before us. It was a testament to the power of intergenerational connection, the enduring legacy of love and wisdom passed down from one generation to the next. As the sun dipped below the horizon, casting the room in a soft ethereal glow, I made a promise to myself. I would honor Aurora's memory by living my life to the fullest, by embracing the challenges that came my way, and by sharing her story with the world. I would uncover and honor the hidden stories of my own life, recognizing the beauty and resilience that lay within. And I would encourage others to do the same, to delve into their own pasts, to connect with their ancestors, and to discover the profound wisdom that lies waiting to be unearthed. For in those hidden stories, in those forgotten memories, lies the key to understanding ourselves, to finding our purpose, and to building a brighter future for generations to come. And that, I realized, was Aurora's true legacy. A legacy of love, courage, and wisdom. A legacy that would continue to inspire me and countless others for years to come. The overlooked birthday paled in comparison to the gift she had ultimately given me. The gift of understanding her, and through her myself. The diary wasn't just about her past. It was a roadmap for my future. Here, at the end of our time together, let us hold close the echoes of Aurora's life. A life painted with the hues of courage, sacrifice, and a love that whispered secrets into the very fabric of existence. She wasn't a queen on a throne, nor a general leading armies. She was a quiet warrior, battling storms within and without, armed only with a heart full of devotion and a spirit that refused to be extinguished. Her hidden diary, those fragile pages filled with ink-stained memories, revealed not a life untouched by sorrow, but a life that blossomed despite it. A life that chose kindness when cruelty seemed easier, that chose hope when despair threatened to consume her. Aurora's story, you see, isn't just about her. It's about all of us. It's about the quiet strength that resides within each of us, waiting to be awakened. It's about the capacity for love that stretches beyond the boundaries of blood and circumstance. It's about the resilience that allows us to rise time and time again, from the ashes of disappointment and loss. It's a reminder that even in the darkest of times, a single act of kindness, a single word of encouragement, can ignite a spark of hope that illuminates the path forward. Remember the little girl who longed for a birthday celebration, a simple acknowledgement that she mattered? Remember the young woman who sacrificed her own dreams to care for her family, her heart aching with unfulfilled desires? Remember the elder who found solace in the written word, pouring her soul onto the pages of her diary, creating a legacy of love and resilience? These moments, these fragments of a life lived fully, are threads woven into the grand narrative of humanity. If Aurora's story has touched your heart, if it has stirred something within you, then it has served its purpose. Stories like hers, stories of ordinary people living extraordinary lives, only truly live on when they are heard, when they are shared, when they resonate within the hearts of others. They become a part of our collective memory, a reminder of the enduring power of the human spirit. Think about the secrets Aurora held close. Not the secrets of others, but the secrets she kept within her own heart. The dreams she nurtured in the quiet hours, the hope she clung to when the world seemed bleak, the love she gave freely, even when it was not returned. These are the treasures that truly define a life, the whispers of the soul that echo through the generations. And now, as we reach the end of this chapter, I invite you to consider the legacy you wish to leave behind. What stories will be told about you? What acts of kindness will you be remembered for? What seeds of hope will you plant in the hearts of others? The answer, my dears, lies within you. It lies in the choices you make each day, in the love you give, in the courage you find to face your own challenges. Aurora taught us that even when we feel forgotten, even when we feel invisible, our lives have meaning. Our stories matter. Our voices deserve to be heard. She showed us that love is not a finite resource, but an endless wellspring that can nourish and sustain us, even in the most barren of landscapes. She reminded us that resilience is not the absence of pain, but the ability to rise above it, to find strength in our vulnerability, to embrace the beauty and fragility of life. She faced hardship with grace, and while her story is tinged with sadness, it is ultimately a story of triumph. A triumph of the human spirit, a triumph of love, a triumph of hope. It's a story that reminds us that even when the world seems to have forgotten us, we can still find solace and strength within ourselves, and within the connections we forge with others. It's a story that encourages us to embrace our own stories, to share them with the world, and to create a legacy of love and kindness that will endure long after we are gone. Perhaps as you listened, a memory surfaced, a whisper from your own past. Perhaps you remembered a grandmother, an aunt, a friend, who, like Aurora, possessed an inner strength that defied explanation. Perhaps you recalled a moment when you felt forgotten, only to be reminded of your worth by an unexpected act of kindness. These moments, these connections, are what bind us together, what make us human. And so, as we prepare to part ways, I ask you to carry Aurora's story with you. Let it be a reminder that even in the face of adversity, love and resilience can prevail. Let it be a source of inspiration when you feel lost or discouraged. Let it be a call to action to live your life with purpose, with kindness, with courage. If Aurora's story resonated with you, if it stirred something within your soul, please share that feeling. Leave a little spark of your own appreciation. A simple acknowledgement can travel further than you imagine. It can let others know they are not alone in feeling the weight and wonder of stories like hers. If Aurora's journey moved you, please leave a like. It's a small gesture, but it speaks volumes. It tells us that her story has touched your heart, that it has resonated with your own experiences, that it has inspired you in some way. And if you wish to hear more tales of ordinary people living extraordinary lives, if you wish to delve deeper into the hidden corners of the human heart, please subscribe to our channel. We believe that everyone has a story to tell, and we are committed to sharing those stories with the world. We want to create a community of listeners, of storytellers, of people who believe in the power of human connection. We are all storytellers in our own way. We weave narratives with our words, our actions, our very lives. And the stories we tell shape the world around us. So let us choose to tell stories of hope, of kindness, of resilience. Let us choose to tell stories that inspire us to be better, to do better, to love better. Aurora's diary entries were filled with reflections on her life, her loves, her losses. She wrote about the joy of simple moments, the beauty of nature, the comfort of friendship. She wrote about the pain of betrayal, the sting of loneliness, the fear of the unknown. But most of all, she wrote about hope. She wrote about the unwavering belief that even in the darkest of times, there is always a glimmer of light, a reason to keep going. And now I turn to you, my dears. What secret do you believe Grandma Aurora held closest to her heart? What unspoken desire, what hidden dream, fueled her spirit and sustained her through the years? Share your thoughts, your interpretations, your own personal reflections, in the comments below. Let us create a space for dialogue, for connection, for shared understanding. Let us honor Aurora's memory by engaging in meaningful conversation, by exploring the depths of the human experience together. Let her story ripple outward, touching lives and inspiring hearts. Let us honor her memory by carrying forward her legacy of love, resilience, and unwavering hope. Let her quiet strength be a beacon for us all, guiding us through the storms of life and reminding us that even in the face of adversity, we are never truly alone. And remember, my dears, every like, every subscription, every comment, is a testament to the power of storytelling, a celebration of the human spirit, a tribute to the enduring legacy of Grandma Aurora. So please share your thoughts, your feelings, your own personal stories. Let us create a community of listeners and storytellers, bound together by the threads of human connection. Because in the end, it is the stories we tell, the stories we share, that define us. They shape our understanding of the world, they inspire us to be better versions of ourselves, and they connect us to something larger than ourselves. They are the echoes of the past, the whispers of the present, and the hopes for the future. And they are the legacy we leave behind. So, thank you for listening. Thank you for sharing this time with me, for allowing me to share Aurora's story with you. May her memory be a blessing, and may her legacy of love, resilience, and hope live on in your hearts forever.